the Akufo-Addo administration, with civil society questioning the former president's plan to deal with illegal mining.
Yeah, wouldn't be because of the fight against Galamsey. Oma chichi omo, edi oma koto efiase. Enti enimse omo afom. And so, ye besha ase foforo no, ye di ombodi becha omo. Enti sa enkwada na yako loki omo no. Ye be yi omo abefie.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Gas and Cement, the nation builder, and also brought to you by Belacqua Mineral Water. Well, there is criticism tonight from civil society on the back of a promise by former President John Mahama to free illegal miners arrested and imprisoned under the Akufo-Addo administration. He's been touring the Ashanti region and speaking in Abesawa in the region on the first of his 6-day tour. He stated although those incarcerated have committed an offense against the state, a future NDC government as part of the mining reform will set them free.
Abai way by almost say almost quantity Galamsey. Into almost JJ for excavators. Almost JJ for MPDA. Na anka almost JJ any name say Obia Eja Galamsey na anka nyehwe. And so Obetia na obi excavator omaje and na FDA bia omaje. Obetia near the Coma party ni. So no the onfa sa FDA no enkoye Galamsey no a. Na uyasa ema oman no enkoye. Enti maka says nyame adom nearby. Obi a yaje ni machine bia ye beje na de asande na de ama no. Ezu asasi a yetu sika kokko woso aye mining concession na even more small scale mining concessions omo on krata bibia I cover sa concession no abai we buy o ma ji sa concessions ni nyina e no ma chicha ma party mpanyimfo e na ebusuafo it is hard no so ye ba obi a ya je ne concession bia ye beje na de ne asa de na de ama no ezu eza your mother wouldn't be because of the fight against Galamsey. Oma chichi omo, edi oma koto efiase. Esi she fofra yede benti. Ni America ne se ye be sha ase fofro. Enti enim se omo afom. Enso ye be sha ase fofro no, ye de ombody be cha omo. Enti sa enkwada na yakọ loki omo no. Ye be yi omo abafie. Na esi she no ya ye no fofro. Send a beya afe obia be hu se say and a small scale mining emra edasuni na ye nyina ye di so ezu ye the technical vocational education training eba e be say ye hu se ye ma no uko school a ye pese obia ewe ngoma e ko tro nso hwe e bi so de omutimi wie apono normal ko tro normal pass obi so de obeka se wa bon but anya se wa bon Nyame amboye nyina pe. Nyame amboye nyina pe. Enti ba kutimi extra and woman extra and social no pass. Ba ko so be ka se wa bon. Also dey for no technical vocational.
So that is former President John Mahama there. There are three key things he said in this sound and then I want to quickly break it down for you. First, he says for small scale miners whose hardware, that is the excavators, were seized. He talks about how this government has seized them and then given it to their cronies. He says he's going to retrieve those excavators and return it to the small scale miners. And then he talks about the youth. He says the youth in the area, just to translate it directly for you, some of the youth too, because of the fight against Galamsey, they have been arrested and imprisoned. But because of our new policy, we want to begin afresh. We know they have done wrong, but because we are beginning afresh, we will pardon them. So those young men who have been locked up, we will set them free so they come home. That is I guess the bit that has gotten civil society talking today. Richard Elima is Executive Director of the Center for Social Impact.
Well, I mean, he has the power of clemency. I mean, he can grant clemency to any criminal he so wishes, and that is purely legal. But if it is under a clemency, if he wants to release the prisoners under clemency, he needs to make it very clear to them. And the bigger issue has to do with the question that is he going to grant clemency to every single illegal miner in prison at the moment? And going forward, any illegal miner who will be arrested and imprisoned under the current law. Is it something that he's going to do? So I am looking at the sustainability of the whole thing. The big issue, the bigger picture we need to look at is whether the current law under which these galamseyers were imprisoned is appropriate or is achieving its purpose under the current dispensation. If it is not, then going forward we need to look at how we can review the law, amend the law, and then make it more acceptable and more appropriate.
Well, my colleague Maxwell Agbagba is traveling with the president on his Ashanti regional tour. Joins us on the telephone line right now. Maxwell, this particular promise that the former president made, we understand that it's not a one-stop promise. He's been making it throughout the tour. Give us more.
Exactly, Evans. He has been making this promise throughout the tour. In fact, at the first place that he visited, that is the Besuwa community. That is where we first heard him, make this promise to the approval of the crowd that had gathered there. He repeated saying when we went to Mankran. So even today, he repeated saying when we visited two other places yesterday. That was what we also saw today when he visited the Moshi Zongo Park, also here in the Ashanti region in the Minshambo constituency, where he made that promise. Surprisingly, though, all the stops where he made those promises, if we were to say that, let's say, a voice vote, you'd say it received an overwhelming endorsement from the people who had gathered there. That made us very curious. So we tried to find out from the people there, what they are interested in and why they are so excited about that promise to free persons arrested for illegal mining. And many of them we spoke to told us about how they are still feeling the impact of that decision that was taken by government to clamp down, completely on illegal mining. Many of them we spoke to told us that they used to, one way or the other, benefit from the activities of these illegal miners. In fact, a woman who I spoke to told me that his son used to be, one would say, an illegal miner who used to go to the field, get some money, bring to her, and she's able to also feed the other children. But she says that is difficult now. Another woman I spoke to, who is a seller at the Southern magazine, just some minutes ago I spoke to her. She told me that she used to sell at the Southern magazine, but right now, even if you go to the Southern magazine, a lot of the people who work within that enclave are complaining because in previous times, you find persons who engage in illegal mining. Some of them sometimes bring their excavators to Southern magazine when they become, faulty. The guys there are able to fix it for them, and they are able to generate some kind of money out of that. Another man I spoke to told me that he has friends who used to, give him money sometimes when he's in need, but right now they are all unable to meet his demands when he asks them for money. So really, it's a mix of all of these, things that they tell me make them, support what the former president is saying. I asked them if they are aware about how the activities of illegal miners really go to hurt our environment. They tell me that for them, it is the bread and butter issues that matter to them. They say that they are also happy. The president stated that this is part of a wider or a broader mining sector reform. So they feel that if those people are freed and if those people are allowed to come back home, indeed, the mining sector reform will be able to cater for all the things that we fear would go, to heck the environment. In fact, when the president was speaking, he actually acknowledged that the people who were jailed for illegal mining actually committed an offense against the state. But he said that as part of the mining sector reforms, we need to start on a clean slate, and that is why he thinks that it is important for them to be free. Evans.
I see, and then it almost appears from what you're saying that the former president knew the community he was speaking to, and that some of these members of this community had illegal miners and had couched the message specifically for the community members.
Exactly. What we are picking up is that some of the communities we visited were not really mining communities, but we are very close to mining communities here within the Ashanti region. So you have people moving from those communities, sometimes going into the mining towns, to go and work there. But because now, soldiers, the military, the police are all clamping down on the activities in a very severe form, many of them have moved from those mining communities back to where they originally came from. I want to hazard a guess and say that yes, indeed, some of them were part of the people that the president, was addressing, and that is why we sort of got the feedback, that we received from the many people. But persons who are not directly engaged, what's surprising actually is that persons who are not directly engaged in that illegal mining also sort of think that it is a good step and it is proper for the president to free all those persons. In fact, if you have to do a contest analysis of what the NDC presidential candidate said, in fact, he started from talking about how some persons had their excavators unjustifiably seized. He said that some persons were actually engaged in small-scale mining, not illegal mining. They had the needed documentation to engage in that, but they had the excavators seized from them unjustifiably, and he thinks that that was injustice that was meted out to them. He also thinks that some of the excavators that were taken from them were given to people who really did not deserve them. And as you rightly mentioned initially, he said those excavators should be returned to them. So really a contest analysis, he made all those points and then zeroed in on this point about freeing all the people who have been, arrested and incarcerated for engaging in galamsey.
Yeah, and he noted when he made that point in Chi that yes, we know they've done some wrong, but because this is a new policy his government will introduce, those young men will be set free so they can come home. I'm joined on the telephone line right now. Maxwell, thank you very much. We're joined on the telephone line right now by Francis Asibu. He's the head of monitoring at the Galamstop. That's the government task force against illegal mining. Mr. Asibu, thank you for your time here on Top Story.
Hello?
Thank you for your time, Mr. Asibu, for your time here on Top Story.
Oh, okay. Good evening to all listeners. First of all, I just want to make some commendations that His Excellency Nana-Addo did so well. Sorry, sir.
Before we get there, I want to ask you directly: what's your reaction to the former president's announcement? Throughout his tour, including today, that you've just had.
Okay. Have you asked the question?
Yeah.
Already?
What's your reaction to the John Mahama's announcement that he will free the people that your task force, through the police and others, have arrested? You return the excavators to people and restore people's concessions.
The comment his former president made, I think, as president with such executive powers, he has right to pardon and then a grant amnesty to all levels of criminals in custody anywhere. And so, if he says that and says as president-elect, yes, for now he is not. And so I don't think it is an issue that we should be so much talking about. Because if he is, it is his choice. He has a choice between national security issues and economic values, which one is of preference to him. And so if he says when he comes, that is what he's going to do, fine. It is within his capacity as president. But we also would have to look at what are the benefits? And then ongoing, what are we telling society? Those are the things we should be looking at.
Yeah, what's your own answer to that? Those two questions.
Yes, my answer to it is that it is simply an indication of system failures, right from the enforcement part to the judiciary level, because these people would have to pass through a certain legal process to get to where they are, because that is what the system is saying. And so if at a point the ruling of a certain judge is made to look like they didn't have merit, then we should understand what we are dragging the legal system into.
In fact, John Mahama clarifies that he is aware and he knows that these young men that have been arrested and imprisoned, he's aware they've done wrong. But because this is a new policy he plans to introduce, he will, of course, set them free. So he acknowledges that they've done wrong. He's not saying that they haven't done wrong.
Yeah, so what it simply means is that we're going to have the wrong broadened. That is what it simply means. That is a simple answer I can give.
This is a broad policy. He believes that instead of just putting them up in prison, reform them, train them, and give them an opportunity to do this business legally. You don't agree?
No, I agree, but that is exactly what this government have done. Community mining programs have been set up, trainings have taken place at Takwa, and so on and so forth. So it is not anything new. The only new thing that His Excellency is talking about is just freeing them. Of course, that would be within his powers as president. If elected as a president, he has powers to pardon and grant that kind of amnesty. So it will not be anything anybody would be able to challenge him on. If even His Excellency himself today decides to do that, nobody would be able to say no or otherwise, because it's within his executive power.
How would that affect the fight that you are leading against illegal mining?
It means in his time there would be no fight. You know, we would have fought it and then ended somewhere, and then his choice of approach to the situation, if the style is to release them, restructure the system the way that would suit his administration, then that is it. It then does not affect me in any way.
But here's the question. I mean, he raises the question about the excavators. We know excavators that were seized also went missing, a lot of them. He says he will look for these excavators and return them to those you seized it from. Question is, have you managed to find all the missing excavators?
To my best of knowledge, what I have on record is it is not missing. And so if there are missing excavators issues by now, we know where the fingers are pointing. And so if they must be found, they will be found by whoever made them missing. And so that is it.
You're saying that excavators were not missing at all?
I'm not saying that excavators were not missing. Okay. Everybody have heard this in this country.
Good.
What I'm simply saying is that if they were missing, the system is able to prove who got them missing. Is that not? And so through the processes that it got missing, it will be found.
Have they been found? Because I know there was a task force that was looking for them. They found some at Adenta, etc. Have they been found?
Yes, we all know some have been found, and not all.
Okay, so that's the question I'm asking you. How many still left to be found?
I don't have that data now.
Okay,
I don't have that data now. Yeah.
But can you tell me how many you found? Since we realized that some were missing.
I think the minister spoke a few weeks ago on this matter, and he gave certain figures. I can't vividly remember them, but I think going by those figures, that is what we have.
Okay. Now, John Mahama's point is that the excavators went missing only because MPP operatives took these excavators from those people you seized it from and gave it to your cronies.
Well, these are thoughts that have come up, and the only thing I can say is that if the proofs are there, why not? If they are not there, then of course. Also, like I'm saying, these issues have come up, and we all know what the nitty-gritties are.
Now, let's talk about the final leg of things that John Mahama talked about today, which is that the concessions. He also alleges that concessions were taken from small-scale miners had not been returned to them. Is that true?
What I only know is that at a certain point, at the committee level, most of the operations stopped because the committee more or less was not functioning. And so most of those things more or less got trapped somewhere in the pipelines. That is what I can say, or slowed down, more or less. The whole process got slowed down. Most of them too would even tell you now that some of them are also still receiving their licenses back to go to the field. And so it's a whole process.
So what you're saying is slowed down, but it's been quite some time now.
Yes.
Have you managed to return all these lands to the people once you clear them?
Yes, definitely. It's just a system update. And once that is done, you cannot take another person's concession and give to another. Even the real concession owner has no right to allot the concession to a third party, let alone somebody who does not own the concession taking it and giving it to anybody. Go through the act, you see what the system says. So it is not done. Some of these things are things being set around, but the reality is that it cannot be done.
Francis Asibu, I'm grateful that you joined me, head of monitoring at Galamstop. That's the government task force on illegal mining. Richard Lima is the executive director of the Center for Social Impact and joins me on the line. Richard, I've heard your position, which is that from what I recall, if it's correct, that the bigger strategy should be a bigger policy about reviewing the illegal mining laws in this country. Have you heard that from at least the John Mahama, who's obviously making some further proposals, including freeing those arrested in illegal mining?
Yes, I've been hearing about freeing illegal miners who have been incarcerated. I've heard about general reforms in the small-scale mining sector, but so far nothing concrete has been, laid out in terms of policy or in terms of law. So we are still waiting for proposals from both parties with regards to the promulgation of a law on small-scale mining that can streamline the sector and then bring it at par with the best practices in other parts of the world where small-scale mining is very prominent.
What specifically do you want to see if that proposal comes forward?
First of all, I think the fundamental issue has to do with government placing a lot of emphasis on small-scale mining. If you look at the entire mining chain, a lot of effort, a lot of emphasis is placed on large-scale mining. So just check our investment policies. I mean, we always focus on FDI into the mining sector, foreign direct investment. Very little attention is paid to indigenous investment in mining. And that has been a problem. If we were to focus a lot more on indigenous investment in our mining sector, supporting our small-scale mining sector, to also build companies that can one day become the Anglo Gold Ashantis and Gold Coast Ghana's, I'm sure that some of the rocks that we are seeing will be a thing of the past. So I want to see, first and foremost, government's attention to be redirected to building a healthy, sustainable small-scale mining sector, which can employ a lot more of our youth in the communities than the kind of attention we are giving to it now.
And very quickly, I mean, what do you make of his promise to free illegal miners arrested, prosecuted, jailed if he wins power?
I think it's an unfortunate statement. I thought these illegal miners were jailed under a law. I remember the law was amended to provide stiffer punishments for illegal mining. And these guys who are serving time in jail were arrested based on the amended portions of the law. So if there's anything to change, I would have rather preferred that Mr. John Mahama will talk about changing the law or amending the law so that in future some of these things will not recur. But to, blanketly make a blanket statement that when I come to power, I'm going to free all of them. That for me is a very dangerous statement, and we need to have a second look at it, because are we going to then say that all those who have been incarcerated as a result of illegal mining are going to be released, including those who will in future be incarcerated? So we need to go back to the law, and we need to look at it from a broader perspective. Like I was saying this morning, we need to do a more, a broader review of the small-scale mining sector, including the legal regime, so that we can avoid some of these controversies that come whenever we are entering into an election year.
I'm grateful for your time here on Top Story. Richard Alima, Executive Director, Center for Social Impact. Newsnight starts in 3 minutes.